How was the day treating you?
So far, so good.
Yeah?
I had to go to the gym a little bit later than usual because it's a holiday here, but otherwise things are clicking.
Holiday. What's a holiday up in Canada today?
It's just I think they call it BC Day. I don't even know what day it is. It's like a provincial thing.
Huh.
So yeah,
Okay.
they just threw together a fake holiday.
Anything to get a day off.
Exactly.
Not a bad idea. Doesn't work for those of us that are entrepreneurs though. We're still stuck with it
Exactly.
no matter what.
Yes.
um, so how are things going for you so far? How are you finding the herbs and the meditation and the oils and all that?
Yeah, I think overall it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy the tea particularly as part of the process, just to set
Mm-hmm.
and set sort of just the body feel.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it seems really good to sort of wind down rather than day, okay, now it's time to meditate. Okay, now meditate. And like, that's fine. I can do that. But I
Mm-hmm.
just surprisingly have found that this is like just that extra layer of calm before getting into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've been applying the oils. I'm not sure what I need to get out of that or what I can be getting out of that. So maybe you can speak to that more. I mean, I
Okay.
like the smell.
Mm-hmm.
I have done EFT tapping before, so I understand some of the points.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, maybe I need to be more mindful of it or something, but perhaps you can speak more on that.
Okay. Yeah, certainly. It mimics the idea of the tea in terms of how it's supposed to affect the biochemistry. You're not ingesting it, so it's a little different than when we actually drink something. But the basic idea with both the tea and the oil is to help the body drop into that zone, into that space where it's just easier to do the work.
Mm.
It doesn't, neither of them take away the work that we have to do once we're sitting, but they should make it easier to stay present with the things that are challenging in that process. And then the oils themselves have a certain function to affect the psyche, but then also the points that we put it on based on Chinese medicine, based on acupuncture, also sort of mimic some of that. And so it's really like, ultimately you could do a comparison study where you use the tea only for a week and you use the oils only for a week, and then you use them together for a week. But what I generally find is that the more we bring some intention to the practice, the easier it is for us to drop into it. So if we're taking a moment to anoint parts of the body, we're taking a moment to make some tea, I just find it really helps us drop into the space in the way that you're saying.
Right. Okay. No, that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Yeah, I just wasn't really sure what to expect. So I think as part of the process,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it has been useful, those two things together to sort of, like you say, fall into it or to get into the headspace slightly easier than otherwise.
And how are you finding the dual awareness? How is that process?
I like it. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's, for me, it's good, I think, as well. I mean, I obviously not to compare, but I know my wife, who's a novice meditator,
Yeah.
uh, is having more trouble with the two things to pay attention to at once, as she says. But for me, I find that it's perhaps because of that, I feel as though I can dive in there very quickly.
Yeah.
And that feels as though I'm where I need to be, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like the end of the meditation MP3 that you sent, where we do both the breath and the feeling
Mm-hmm.
the foot on the ground together, because it's just like there's not really any room for anything else in the mind, I find.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's been really good. And like I said in the survey that I think I did this morning, it's just I've been separate from this. I've been really trying to focus on just somatic awareness of when I
Mm-hmm.
get triggered, breathe, and
Mm-hmm.
just that one little breath. I mean, I don't remember all the time, but that one little breath has been a huge savior in a number of situations, just with the kids and
Okay, that was my next question, and kind of the
have. Uh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, that would have been my next question, and kind of where we want to take this, because we want to take it from a sort of choreographed exercise into the real world, right?
Yes.
And so if you look at the meditation as just as like a training process, Okay, so you do the work, you feel your feet. You do the work, you feel your chest. Now you do the work, you feel both of them. The goal is really to get to both of them. And if you don't have to take a moment to feel your feet and you don't have to take a moment to feel your chest, you can jump straight into the deep end of the pool of feeling both of them together and kind of expedite getting yourself into that zone. Or if you find that touching both of them is fairly easy, I will often do like 2 breaths of feeling my feet, 2 breaths of feeling my chest, and then I go straight into feeling both of them, and spend the time with that dual awareness rather than singular and singular.
Right.
Part of the reason for that is that when we are triggered, the thing that triggers us becomes much larger, and it begins to suck us down that rabbit hole of sort of fight, flight, freeze. Mm-hmm. So if we can include another something, by default, the thing that is so big has to give up a certain percentage of its space. And so the next layer of things to do is to catch when you're triggered, like you're saying, and then to do the dual awareness for 2 breaths or 3 breaths, and just notice how the biochemistry changes and how rapidly it changes in the course of those 3 breaths. Mm-hmm. The other side of it is, if you have a bigger trigger, is to go make the tea and do the dual awareness of your breath in the chest while you're drinking the tea, and see how quickly it allows you to reset and come back into function mode. And then the sort of most advanced approach to working with some of this stuff, and where you've kind of eventually want it to go, is you can imagine, without having the event occur, what the trigger is. And so you recreate the neurological cascade and then shut it down. Recreate it, shut it down, recreate it, shut it down, so that you're learning to recognize that reaction the moment that it comes up. Oh, there it is, put it down. There it is, be calm. There it is, be calm. And eventually what happens is you can sit in the presence of it, and it's just there. Your son is doing whatever it is that he's doing that is the trigger for you, and you recognize that you don't like it, that it's not the behavior that you're wanting to see, but it also is something you can navigate really smoothly because you're grounded and you're maintaining the flow of breath. The brain doesn't go into that neurological patterning that it had in the past.
Right.
And that is really where you sort of have to recreate it outside of the actual events. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think there needs to be, I guess, intentional time to do that. So yeah, that's a good thing to know.
And that's something you can do as you're doing the meditation. So you feel your feet on the ground, you feel the breath, and then you connect into that space of the trigger.
Okay.
And then while you're in that space, you've already connected to the chest and feet. So you're connecting to both of those and that. So you get yourself grounded, you get yourself stable, you're in a good space, and then you invite in the language of Buddha, you invite Mara in for the cup of tea. It's like, okay, I'm going to hang out with you and get to know you, but I'm calm, I'm grounded, I'm good, I'm ready for this. It's a closed container, right? I'm in my space by myself. It's not the real world. And I'm just going to hang out with and watch the cascade unfold. And as I feel the intensity of that cascade building, I keep grounding myself back into the physical body.
Okay.
Right? So you're basically, in a sense, you are increasing your weight load for weightlifting. Mm-hmm. And you're building your stamina, your fortitude in the presence of Mara, the tempter, whatever we want to call that language. And what you'll find is it just gets easier and easier to be in the presence of that. And it just doesn't grab you the same way.
Right.
But that is if you find that the 2 points are fairly easy, I would encourage you to push yourself into that space, because that's really where you'll get the bigger picture benefits out of it. And it's where it has to go, basically. The only way to unravel from the trigger is to jump into the trigger.
Right. So would you say then that even though it's in the confines of this 28-day challenge, I can not necessarily listen to that recording and just jump in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The recording is there as training wheels. Once you have the process, the goal is for you to actually work with the trigger, not work with hearing my voice. Right.
Right.
And it's, as you've learned, it's a pretty straightforward process. Feel your feet, feel your chest, feel both of them.
Okay.
That's
yeah,
great.
that's good. Cause I was sort of thinking like, okay, well, I know this is the challenge, so I want to do it all like by the book. But I tried doing it with the Waking Up app the other day. I just like started, like you said, just did the feet and did the breathing and then started the regular meditation. And so there's that. But yeah, I didn't want to sort of jump too far ahead if that was sort of out of the confines of the challenge. But I understand that that's probably the next step, is just to sit and do everything. And like you say, invite it in. So I think I'm excited to do that, because I think I'm sort of going, okay, I don't know how much longer I should push this. I don't know if I should do it every time. So that's really good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole goal is really, it's just training wheels. So you know what the 2 focal points are. And depending on the day, if the trigger is really huge, you may need to spend 10, 15, 20 minutes just feeling your feet in the chest.
Right.
Other times it's just like, no, you're ready to jump in the deep end and go for a swim. And so you're just like, okay, I'll have my cup of tea and I'm ready to like hang out with Mara and see what comes up inside of me. Okay. And what you want to observe is when there is the trigger, right? You're envisioning the reaction. Feel where that happens in your body somatically. Right. So, and usually it's in the center of the chest, the emotional center of the body, but it could be your shoulder, it could be your knee. And what you want to do is to feel your feet on the ground and then invite the breath into the center of that contraction. And you feel where the contraction is, and you just let the breath create physical movement in that space. Okay. You're not trying to shut down the brain or the emotional reaction. You allow for it, that the emotional reaction to be there, but ground yourself into the physical body and let the breath move in that space that contracts. The part that we want to say no to repetitively is the story, the thoughts that come. So it's no to the thoughts, but yes to the body. Right. So it's like, okay, I feel this constriction in my chest. I feel my feet, and I let the breath begin to move that which is also sort of habituated to going into constriction. The bigger esoteric perspective is that within Chinese medicine, the breath is our gateway to heaven, because heaven is non-substantial. We can't grab it. We can get it via the breath. And so by bringing the breath into the chest or into those areas of constrictions, we're asking for something bigger than us to grace us with presence and support as we struggle through whatever the trigger is. Okay. In other traditions, we can visualize light there as another way of working with that. But just getting the breath to flow there and inviting the breath as an idea of asking for grace or asking for support is one way that we can kind of get some help as we're dealing with these things that are just difficult. Right. Okay. That's great. Yeah. And that's really the gist of it. You just want to keep hardwiring that process and seeing how frequently you get triggered, how quickly you can reset when you are triggered, and how well the tools help you to reinforce. Because in real life, you want one breath as your guideline, right? Can I reset in one breath or 3 breaths? If it's an intense meeting, you're at an office, Can I get up and go to the bathroom? And in the time that I'm walking to the bathroom and walking back to the bathroom, can I reset my neurological system just by feeling my feet with each step, feeling the breath as I'm walking, and just be like, okay, that triggered me, but guess what? I have this pathway to reset that very rapidly.
Yeah. And that's sort of what's been happening. I mean, like I said, it's very new. I typically will just try to sort of be in the moment and therefore see who is having this negative feeling to the response, and then find the self. There is no self. Okay, I can sort of like relax there. But obviously that's less, it's less grounded, I suppose. And so I actually talked to a, what is it called? Some sort of play therapist, actually, because my son's going to play therapy as of the last couple of weeks. And something like that. Anyway, sorry. We had a parental call with her, and she suggested doing regulation for ourselves, and it was very much the breathing. And so as I've tried to do that, I've tried to then include the feet on the ground. And I find when I do that, the 3 or 4 times over the last week that I've remembered to do it, it just like drops back even more. So that's been really good. So I like take the breath, and what I'll do is I'll say to the kids, like, I'm feeling really frustrated right now, right in the middle of my body, and it's really tight. So I'm going to breathe. And when I do that, it's like you said, it's just like, you're just back. And that's happened a couple times, even after the fact where I've reacted negatively. It's like, okay, do that. And then now you're back. And it's like, wow, you just get that feeling of, not, negative shame, but the shame of having acted a certain way because you're out of sync or out of authenticity. But it's like that comes within a couple of breaths, like you're saying. So I like that part of it. And I like that it's sort of that one extra tool with the feet rather than just the breath to come back to it all. So that's another one of the challenges I'd like to continue on over the next couple of weeks, is just to make sure that that's happening more and more often.
Yeah. That really is the goal, is that like, it's a very embodied, physically grounded reset. It gets us out of the mental body and back into the physical body, where we have this sort of capacity to be instantly present and not in our heads. And it's something you can also share with your son, that if he's crying, you can hold his feet and just ask him, can you feel my feet? Now breathe. And you're teaching him the system without it having to be a formal meditation. It's just the brain just can't focus on that many things at once. So it's just a way to trick the system. And it's interesting in that the more that it runs, the longer it runs before we shut it off, the wider its bandwidth gets. So it gets louder and louder in our system. And it gets harder to shut it off the more that we indulge that story. So every time we can catch it and shut it off quickly, we actually not only stop it in the moment, but its bandwidth gets narrower and narrower, so that when it does get triggered, it becomes like a gnat rather than a hawk or something. It's like the size is substantially different. And most of the research in meditation shows it's not staying in that unified place that is the most beneficial for most of us. It's the coming back to the unified place. And as long as you're doing that process of returning to it, that's actually the most important part.
Right.
So it sounds
that's a really good idea with the feet holding with the children. Like, it's just so basic. So yeah, I'm going to use that. Thank you.
I used it when I've done martial arts my entire life, and I used to teach kids, and kid would get hurt, they would cry, they'd throw a temper tantrum, and you would just come and you would hold their feet and sit with them, and I'd ask him to breathe. And I wasn't trying to get him to think of his feet, but just the fact that I'm touching his feet,
right,
the mind goes there. And then you're like, okay, just breathe with me, and you're present with them, and you're not telling them not to cry. You're not telling them don't indulge the story. You're just like, come into your physical body and breathe. And and it works. It's quite remarkable for all of us. And as we talked about in the previous call, the foundation for all of the sort of more esoteric light work that Taoism does is built upon the idea that the foundation has to be that we're in our physical body. If we try to do that work and we're not grounded in this reality, we just can't translate it into how we conduct ourselves in this life. And so if we want to bring more sort of overall light and happiness and all of that into our lives here, we start by having that really grounded sensation within us. So then whatever we bring has a foundation to kind of rest upon.
Right.
So I think for you, knowing that you want to do more of that sort of that side of the work, this will be a good foundation for that.
Cool. That's awesome.
Any feedback, anything that you would change that would make it better for you, easier?
I think everything's good. I think everything's clear. Like I said, I like the tea. Like you said, it's got a little bit of the bitterness and it sort of just settles. I'm going to, obviously keep doing the oils. I didn't know if I should be like looking for something or if it was just part of that process, like you're talking about. And I think I realize now it's part of that process. But yeah, I think now I'm just going to use like a non-guided and just do 10 or 20 minutes in the morning just to see how it goes, inviting that feeling in, and just sort of use that as an object along with the feet and the breath. So I think otherwise, yeah, it's going well. Interesting to get sort of mostly similar or mostly familiar things, except for adding that second point and then sort of seeing it from this basically different vantage point or perspective of the Chinese side, which I have not delved into at all. So yeah, overall, everything's going well, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I would say two things would be invite the trigger in when you're alone. And then when you are triggered, try to do the 2 points instantly for 3 breaths and see how quickly you can get yourself to reset and just start to like have that be the default. Okay. And eventually you can do that same thing while you're drinking a glass of water and you're driving in traffic, and like we can have that awareness and still be present with our outside surroundings. Because we're just not indulging the story in the brain. That's the part we have to shut off, but we can come back into the body and be fully embodied while we grab our phone and we grab a pen and we're talking to the kids and we're just like, I'm feeling my feet, but I'm talking to you. And that's what you want. So then it doesn't even ping their radar that you're having to process something.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that'll be like the steps along the way for you. Because again, what I really care is that you're able to translate the practice into your day-to-day life, not just on the cushion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's getting there. It's definitely getting there. So I think it's good. Actually, I really like having this check-in because like I've been doing it, but then this sort of, again, grounds it further, which I guess is part of the whole process. So yeah, this is good. And I will move on with those intentions.
Okay, perfect. Anything else that I can help you with in regards to that?
I don't think so. I mean, I know what it looks like to get into that mood and then to have to like do the work in the moment. So yeah, I mean, I've got a tattoo on my hand that says "Wake up." I look at that, so like I give myself as many triggers as I can
Little
back there
reminders.
to keep being in that headspace. So yeah, I think unless you're gonna come tap me on the shoulder when I'm feeling
Exactly.
Everything's well taken care of. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. I'm so glad you're having a good experience with it. And, in between, even though it's like, it's sort of a explore on your own side of a program. If you have questions, just shoot me a message, right? Don't hesitate. Because the important thing is to, again, just translate it into practical skills. So if something comes up in between and you're having a hard time with it, just reach out. It doesn't have to be a call. I can message me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Perfect.
Cool. Well, thank you for taking the time. And,
thank you.
A couple of weeks.
I appreciate the feedback and the honesty about the experience. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Chat soon. Thank you.
Yeah.